As I've moved along in my career, I have been motivated by, first and foremost, my patients. There's simply nothing more frustrating as a physician to be faced with a patient who's suffering and for whom we don't have an obvious treatment or cure or solution. And that tension, that frustration is a source of energy for me to keep going and to keep looking further and working harder. I've also been motivated by big visions. I'm not an incrementalist. I like the big vision. And so the work we've been doing on the south side of Chicago with the goal that the south side of Chicago become the healthiest urban area by 2025 is a big vision, and it keeps me moving, it keeps me going. I'm motivated by working with great people. I work with a doctor named Eric Whitaker, who is a physician and a South Sider and has been a partner in crime and an inspiration for me. So I look to work with people who have good energy, who are honest, who are always a step ahead, and that's been important. Focus is difficult. You know, if one wants to solve the problems of the world, you realize quickly there are many problems to be solved. And so while focus is important, I think it's also important to be a little sponge-like. In other words, be able to soak up the issues that maybe aren't the ones you sought to address, but that are pressing enough that they need your attention. I'll give one example of that. A couple years ago, a chaplain at the Children's Hospital here at the University of Chicago noticed that families were going hungry at the bedside of their children. In other words, these were families who couldn't necessarily afford to go down to the hospital cafeteria or the local cafe and buy meals, and they couldn't afford to be away from the bedside of their child. She told us about this, and we mentioned it to the medical students. You know, there's something wrong with a hospital where parents are going hungry, and we bet it's not just happening here. What can you do about it? And the students, with some researchers on my team, with the reverend, with other faculty, came up with a solution which involved developing a food pantry in the chapel at the hospital, working with the Greater Chicago Food Depository, which delivers the food, and discreetly identifying families who otherwise would have gone hungry, providing them food, which helped them stay close by to their child, remain an advocate to their child, and even get involved, some of them, as volunteers to help sustain the program. I'm not an expert on food. I'm not an expert on hunger, but I was a sponge enough to know that that's a simple but important problem to solve. And so I and all the other people who helped solve this problem were not experts, but they were people who were willing to take a little extra time in their day to help address a very, very disturbing but simple problem to address.